Nimona, the series by ND Stevenson based off the comic that they made. It's not uncommon for famous people you know to have dabbled in comics. N.K. Jemisin wrote Far Sector for DC. ND Stevenson did Lumberjanes. Gerard Way did Umbrella Academy and made Penny Parker and Spider from Spider-Verse. But this is unique since Nimona is, according to everything I can find, ND Stevenson's first graphic novel, released all the way back in 2015. So it would make sense there's a lot of love put into the story. And either you get super famous and are able to produce your own show off your comic like Gerard Way, or you've been in the animation business for so long that you know enough people that will fight for you in order to get it on Netflix and fully made that way. But the road to getting Nimona finished was actually very difficult. Turns out they were attempting to make Nimona into a full-fledged movie ever since 2015. Originally, the rights to Nimona was grabbed by Blue Sky Studios, the studio most well known for Rio and Ice Age. Nimona, however, focuses on a queer lead character. And ND Stevenson has come out and said that Nimona is basically just not technically a self-insert, but like based off of themselves, you know, like their life experiences and the struggles and all that jazz, all those things that come with the identity. And back in 2015, this sort of movie probably would have looked a lot different than it does now, especially since Disney had all these sorts of constrictions that won't allow for this kind of movie to properly be explored. However, everything went up in smoke all the way back then when Disney bought Fox, and you know, Blue Sky was owned by that also, and so everything got scrapped. It was all gone. It felt like when production was at its hardest, when the movie was over, when it was dead and there was no hope, that spirit and the way everyone connected to the character personally carried us through. Even when it seemed it was absolutely over and there was no chance, it still seemed like nobody wanted to stop fighting, and they didn't. Only when Annapurna and Netflix decided to bring it back from the darkness and try it out again did they finally get the footing that they needed to finally finish Nimona. But even then, they had to start all over. Now we have Nimona today. Now let's see how this movie has risen from the ashes. Nimona takes place in a futuristic society, except they never got rid of their medieval roots. Knights are still knighted, squires still serve, monsters still need to be slain. We follow Ballister, a commoner that's been granted knighthood, and it's super controversial since he's not of noble birth. But those in power saw how devoted and brave he was, and was given knighthood anyway. Funny enough, his boyfriend is of noble birth and gets sponsorships and all that jazz.
I know I've always been tough on you, and I never thought you belonged here. And? And what?
Wow. Queer rep and classism commentary? We're off on a good foot. Recently, we've been seeing more studios deviate from the same face syndrome that Disney Pixar has been doing, one with Nimona, another with Spider-Verse and the upcoming TMNT movie, and I'm so thankful we're seeing the beginning of an animation renaissance where people are starting to see animation as a true medium of storytelling. Sure, it's good for kids, but it's not only for kids. What was supposed to be a beacon of inspiration for the commoners turns into something awful as his sword is rigged to kill their queen, and now he looks like he assassinated her and in front of his partner. Dang, that hurts. Introducing Nimona, monster gremlin freak that sorta kinda hates the kingdom, and she's developed an interest in the man who is accused of killing the queen, fully convinced that they'll team up and fight against the society that casts them out and ostracize them. Nimona is very much gremlin-coded. Ballister's being framed for murder is a very clear-cut comment on how those in power keep the poor poor and the rich rich. Those in power stay in power, and any bit of compassion is squashed in pursuit of maintaining the system they benefit from.
If you see anyone,
murder 'em.
Wow, I see why they fought to keep this movie in production. Nimona is exactly who Ballister needs. I mean, sure, you can say they're foils and it works for the story, but Ballister is someone who wants to uphold justice, and all he's learned is upholding justice through the law. And this is a situation where the law and their system has betrayed him. Nimona knows that he needs to be convinced to work outside the law in order to fix this problem, and Nimona, just for extra flavor, can shapeshift, which, given what I know from ND Stevenson, is most likely an exploration of being gender fluid and never really feeling quite content in the stagnant body that we're born with. Basically, every non-binary or a transgender person wishes they knew shapeshifting.
you're monster.
Do not call me that.
Oh yeah, the moment you realize this is an allegory for gender fluidity, everything else is so obvious.
What if you held it in? If you didn't shapeshift?
I'd die.
Gosh, that sure sounds like, transgender people with severe depression not being allowed to transition or come out of the closet.
I wouldn't die. I just sure wouldn't be living.
Gosh, that sure sounds a lot like transgender people never being allowed to live their true selves. Don't mind me, I'm grabbing the comic from online. Wow, the person that set up Ballister was the director? The person in power? Almost like the people in power maintaining the status quo, like I said? Ballister is still arguing on behalf of the city, even saying the system isn't the problem, it's just the director, and Nimona is trying to tell him that it's not just a singular person that can make everything as bad as it is. Ballister believes the director is protecting the people, but Nimona knows the people don't need protecting from an innocent knight that was wholly devoted to keeping the peace. She's desperately trying to make him see the light of the grander situation and of his own ignorance.
Little kids. They grow up believing that they can be a hero if they drive a sword into the heart of anything different.
Are you trying to make me cry? Because it's working. Basically, her argument is that we can't let some commoner hold the super special sword because it changes how things are, and how we are has kept us safe. So she killed the queen in order to maintain her idea of peace. Also, Pretty Boy isn't dead. That was Nimona, and now they have a confession from the big mean lady. You'd think they'd won. Wrong. She just says, lol, nope, that's not me. They're pretending to be me and frame me. It's a shapeshifter. It's the fantasy version of deepfakes. Boyfriend tells Ballister that Nimona is actually the evil big bad meanie from Legend, the specific monster that they erected a wall around the whole city, like Attack on Titan style. And so he tries to convince Ballister that Nimona is using him. Now he has to fight between listening to Nimona, who helped him, and someone he loves. This is where I'm not sure I like where this is going. This is the small little problem with this story. I mean, Ballister is convinced that Nimona was using him in order to take some heat off of her. And it's like, no, dude, you were in a real nasty situation. She didn't have much to gain from helping you. I mean, sure, she would gain something from it, but you know the director framed you, and she helped you with that. She's doing more to help you than anything else, so why would you just betray her like that? And we get the classic, people were afraid of what they didn't know, and she was backed into a corner and forced to defend herself, and because she was more powerful, people just blamed all the wreckage on her, and so she's never been able to trust anyone ever again. Of course she's a monster. Of course she hates this society. The society made her into a monster. Self-fulfilling prophecy, Nimona goes kaiju mode. We complete the analogy of Nimona reaching the cusp of suicide, only for Ballister to finally realize his mistake and stop her before it's too late, showing her that maybe the world can't see her for who she truly is, but at least one person does. And Ballister completes his arc, truly becoming the knight of the people, a knight of truth, growing into the hero that the queen knew he could become. And instead of repeating the cycle of hate spread by Nimona's childhood friend, Ballister learns how to truly fix the problem at its core. And everyone sees that they're wrong, that the monster is just a child, and the director doesn't care. Desperate to maintain what she's always known, she gets ready to fire the cannon and kill the monster along with everyone in the city. Very much a hell is paved with good intentions sort of perspective, and Nimona sacrifices herself in order to save the people, showing everyone who the true monster was. And in the end, it wasn't Nimona. And in the end, it's too late. And the wall around the city crumbled, the people find out that there was nothing to be afraid of anyway. Just like the walls we put up against what we don't know, sometimes there was never any reason to put up a wall in the first place. Nimona's message is very obvious, but it's very well done. This is the kind of story you can tell Stevenson put their whole heart into. It takes someone who personally knows that exact struggle to make this sort of story that perfectly encapsulates that sort of struggle. And it's the kind of story that works for anyone that feels like an outcast or ostracized or forgotten. It's a story that allows you to empathize with the other by giving you a story that establishes a common ground. Most everyone has experienced that feeling of being on the outside, but not everyone knows what it feels like when everyone has pushed you to the outside. And it's a story that teaches a lesson that directly translates to everything happening in our real life world. Nimona is a movie I hope everyone watches. I hope it's a movie everyone watches a few times so that everyone can realize the deeper message that are instilled in this movie. Or at the very least, I hope you kind of got the meaning by watching this video and are sort of hitting yourself on the head going, oh my gosh, how did I miss all of this? It was probably so obvious to, someone like me. But I have no doubt there's something about this story that I've missed, so leave it in the comments below. What is your takeaway from Nimona? How did you personally interpret Nimona when you first watched it? I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay beautiful and keep playing.